Hi everyone. So today we're going to be focusing on a complete starter's guide for beginners when it comes to Canvas LMS. I'll be focusing on a lot of different aspects of the beginning tools that you'll most likely need if you're just getting started in this LMS. I know that there's a lot of extra features that we could cover, but for this video we're strictly going to stick to the main tools that you would need to know in order to be able to successfully navigate and run a Canvas course. Let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is take a quick tour around our dashboard. Now, depending on your institution, you'll have a different layout or different color scheme depending on what institution you belong to. But in this case, the layout should be mostly the same. So I'm going to take you around the dashboard and then we're going to go into actually creating a course. So to start, you'll normally see that you have an account and a little icon if you've assigned one. If you don't, that's okay. You can do it at a later time. On this bar that I have my mouse over right now, this is called the global navigation. Global navigation is like the settings that pertain to your entire account, and they're not course specific. So whenever you need to do something to Canvas and you want to talk about your settings specific to your account, you would like to look at global navigation. So in the global navigation bar, you're going to see that you have your account, like I said before, the dashboard where you'll have easy access to the courses that you published and not published. You'll have a button that's called courses, which gives you access to all the courses in a listed layout. You'll have access to groups if you belong to any. If you do not see this icon on your global navigation bar, that is totally okay. That is not a cause for panic. Some people have it and some people don't. The other icon you'll see is your calendar icon. A calendar icon is very specific to courses and also gives you access to the calendars of all of your courses all at once. Another tool is your inbox. This is going to be your messaging system between you and the students in your courses. Another phenomenal place is Commons, which is like an entire hub of amazing things that other educators from other institutions have shared along with people from your institution. And so if you're ever in need for assignments, modules, course templates, anything like that, this is a fantastic place to check out. Now, Mastery is actually another product by Instructure in which it's a assessment management system, and I'm not going to really focus on that today, but this is definitely something worth checking out. Another icon that you might see on your global navigation bar is your studio button, and this is fantastic because it allows you to create interactive videos where you can have your students answer questions and interact with videos that you upload, whether it be from the internet or videos of you teaching a concept yourself. And then finally, these icons might not look exactly like this depending on your institution, but the first one is called resources, and that's normally there if your institution has added resources. And then finally, the help button. Now, if you have this icon right here, it's just to minimize global navigation, which all it does is take away the names that belong to the icons and just leave the icons. I normally like to leave it out because I like to see the names. Now, moving on to the tour, in the center, I know you see blurred out, and that's just for privacy reasons, but the middle section is going to be where all of your published courses live. Now, published courses are courses that you've either created or that your institution has brought out for you. Of course, the main thing that you'll need to do is just publish the course, but typically what happens if you are in a district or organization where you have kids coded to you, then you would have these courses available to you here, and all you would have to do is publish them, okay? On the right hand side, you're going to see something called a to-do. A to-do is basically letting you know that you have some things that need your attention, and typically that's either a student has submitted something and you need to take a look at it and grade it. Then right underneath that is called coming up. And coming up is basically letting you know what are the items or events that are coming up in your calendar. And normally what happens is that it lists out 3 things. You see it blurred out just for privacy reasons. And then at the very bottom, If you are someone who belongs to courses as a student, you'll see something here called recent feedback. And of course, you see it blurred out, again, privacy reasons, but that is there to let you know or alert you that someone, typically an instructor, has left some comments and some feedback on the assignments that you have turned in. So that is the main navigation that I wanted to show you. There's one more here. These three dots will let you know that you can switch from a card view, which this is the card view, to a list view, which looks like this. And then you could have a recent activity view. I do not like any of these other ones. I typically like the card view. It just makes it easier for me to just focus on the courses that I need to focus on. The one last thing I wanted to show you is right here on the bottom of all of the right hand side, you can start a new course or view grades. If you view grades, that's going to give you access to the grades that you have for courses where you are enlisted as a student. But in this case, we're going to focus on starting a new course, so I can take you through the beginner. So of course, for this, you're going to want to name your course something. So in this case, I'm just going to name it My Sandbox, because this is the one I'm going to play in. You don't really need to change your content license. It can remain private, specifically because this is going to be the course that you're creating for yourself. Now, I don't want anyone to think that once this course is created, unfortunately, then you can't do anything with it once you have your students inside of a course, depending on your institution, of course. If your institution automatically loads your students onto your courses, don't worry. All of this information can be moved over into that course, and I'll be making a video later on with that process. But here we are in our sandbox, and as you can see, it's a completely empty shell. I have to start doing things to it in order for it to actually look like an actual course. So I already took you through the global navigation bar. So now what we want to do is look at the course navigation. So course navigation sits right there next to the global navigation. And course navigation, what's really nice about this is that you can customize it exactly to what you need for your students. So as you can see, there are some titles here that are that they don't have anything next to them. However, if they do have something next to them with this little eye with a line through it, that means that A, there's no content and it's not visible to the students, or B, you have actually disabled that from being viewable to students. Now in this case, I'm not going to change any of these titles or customize it, just because we're just getting started. But as we move into more in-depth videos, I will show you how to customize that. So the first place we want to go to is creating a homepage. We want something on this front section, okay? But before we go there, I want to show you one more thing. The calendar is going to be the place where most of your students are going to go to check out what's going on in your course when it comes to due dates. Your inbox is definitely going to be that place where your students are going to be messaging you. And then finally, your announcements is going to be another section where your students are going to be going to for a lot of important information from you. So if I had to name the top 3 things that you need to pay attention to, it would be number 1, number 2, and number 3. Those are going to be your main places where you're going to be communicating with your students. So moving on, we said we were going to create a homepage. So let's do just that. I'm going to go and click choose a homepage. But hey, it says I need to select a front page first. Well, when I click on that, it's going to tell me, hey, you don't have any pages. So I need to create one. I'm going to click add one and simply just type in homepage. And we can get as fancy as we want with this, but because we're just doing a beginner's guide for this, I'm just going to title it My Homepage. So let's change the font size. Let's make it bold and just type welcome to your class. Check out modules for all your assignments. Now I'll explain modules in just a second, but we're just doing a very, very simple layout. Now if you want to get fancy and you want to add images and all of those extra things that teachers really love to personalize their courses with, you can do that. And you simply do that by just going to the images tab and go ahead and either search Flickr, which is going to give you access to images that you can use in your course, or you can upload an image that you have found from the internet or created yourself. So let's just put school and see if I find anything that I like. Let's see. Oh, this is nice. So I just click it and it automatically goes into my home page or my page. So in this case, I like this. I'm ready to go. So I'm going to click Save and Publish. Now I have a page. And one thing that I need to do now is tell it to be my home page. So I'm going to go ahead and click Home again. And when I do that, I'm going to go back to where I was, where I clicked Choose a Home Page. And again, it's telling me, hey, you still have not set a front page. So here's the home page that I created just a second ago. I'm going to go ahead and click Use as Front Page. When I do that, you're going to see that a little label has now appeared next to that home page, labeled Front Page. So now I can go back home and again choose Home Page, and hey, there's that home page I created, and I want it to be my front page. So I'm going to click Save. And now you see that that home page appears in the front as soon as students go into this course. Now we're going to move on to, well, now what do I do with this course? I need to actually put some content into this course to provide to my students. So the next place that we're going to go to is called modules. And modules, I want you to think of it in the sense of like units of instruction. Now, as you get more acclimated by using Canvas and get more comfortable with it, I have seen some teachers do amazing things with modules, and they use them as resource hubs, or they use them as places that students can go to get some just extra practice. But because this is the beginner's guide, we're just going to focus on creating units. So let's say that I'm a teacher who teaches all subject areas, and I want to separate them into those subject areas. I can literally just name it anything I want. And I'm not going to really focus on lock until, because I just want to leave this open. So add as module, and as you see, it creates a little header for me here. Now it's telling me, hey, do you want to drag files into here or choose the files? In this case, I'm not going to use this feature just now because I want to start creating placeholders for things that I want to include. So as you can see, there is an icon here that has a line through it. That's alerting me that this specific module that I just created is not published, and which means that the students won't be able to see it. So I'm going to go ahead and add some things in before I start publishing. So let's look at some of the items that I could add to this module. There's a drop-down menu, and you can add an assignment, you can add a quiz, you can add a file. Think of a file like, hey, do I have a PDF? Something like that I already have that I've collected and I want to show it to my students. Another one could be a page. A page is what we created when we did our home page. I like to use those for when I have a lot of information that I want to give my students, and I typically use that when I want to put maybe some infographics and some pictures. I sometimes use that when I want to share anchor charts and some text with my students. I can do a discussion. I can put a text header, an external URL. So if you're somebody who likes to redirect your students a lot to external websites, that's a good one. An external tool is something that functions and works within Canvas but doesn't force students to leave Canvas. So that could be a plethora of tools, but I'll give you some of my top ones. That could be Flipgrid, that could be Nearpod, that could be Newsela, that could be let's see, Microsoft 365. Any of those are called external tools, and what they do is allow the students to do or complete tasks that belong to those companies, but they are living inside of Canvas. It's phenomenal. Now for this purpose, I'm going to just click on page just because I'm going to create some info for my students. Now I don't want to use homepage because that's my homepage. I'm going to just click new homepage, and when I do that, you can see that it's asking me to name it something. So I'm going to say, let's begin here. And I'm going to be teaching, let's see, RL 1.1. This is just a standard off the top of my head, and I don't want to indent. What's nice about this is that if you're creating a page or anything and you want to kind of make it a little bit easier on the eyes and indent them, you can, okay? And one quick pro tip is you can actually add little bit emojis to this. So let's pretend really quick that I wanted to do a little heart. I can add that, or I can even do a little smiley face. So that's just a quick little tip for you. So I'm going to add the item, and let's begin. Now let's say I wanted to add something like a quick quiz to see what the students already know. So I don't have any quizzes, so I simply just click new quiz. And what do you know? Now you're probably wondering, okay, but how do I even edit this? Well, we will just as soon as we kind of create this flow of items. So again, here's my quiz. Then let's do a discussion because I've taught the lesson. So now let's talk about what did you learn? Okay, so we have, let's begin with an info page. What do you know? What did you learn? And now I want the kids to finally do that assignment that I was thinking about creating. So RL, I'm just going to call it RL 1.1 inferencing so that I can refer back to it later. All right, so we have a sequence of things. I've asked my students to read this information. To ask their pre-knowledge. Can even drag these things and let's say maybe we should test them first, or maybe I want this to go before this. It really is entirely up to you, and of course you can name them anything you want, but just for the sake of teaching you these different tools, I'm just going to keep it in this order. Okay, so now let's actually do something with this content. What do you know? Now what we're going to be doing is creating or editing a assignment or a quiz. So in this case, you can see this quiz is unpublished and only the teacher can see the quiz until it's published. Well, I need to edit, so I'm simply going to click edit, and then as soon as I do, I have this box. This is my rich content editor box. This is the box where you're going to want to put your instructions. So I normally typically tend to kind of create some general instructions. So I normally say, make sure to read each question carefully. And then of course you can add as much information as you need here, but it's not part of the question, it's just the instructions. So now down here you have several options. You can leave it in this assignment group. I typically leave it there. And then you also have practice quizzes, graded surveys, and ungraded surveys. Because this one is going to be a quiz where I'm just checking their knowledge, it's not a graded quiz, it will just be a practice, okay? Now, before I leave it on this option, I just want to show you something where it gave me other options to sync to SIS. Now, SIS is a student information system. What does that mean? That means that if your institution and your organization automatically have kids rostered, right, that would be considered a SIS. So what happens here is that the teacher isn't required to manually enter these students, but they're actually automatically entered for you. So that means that if I click this and then I sync to my system, my SIS system, that means that if I graded this, I could potentially just send those grades into that system where I would be monitoring for report cards and progress reports and that type of thing. But in this case, I'm not creating a graded quiz. I'm just creating a practice quiz, which is why that option goes away, because it's not graded. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that. Sync to SIS is extremely important, especially if you want to create a system of productivity where you don't have to manually enter grades. So back to practice quiz. I can shuffle the answers and I can create a time limit. For a practice quiz, that's not really necessary, but if you wanted to, you could potentially check that off and add minutes. You could also allow multiple attempts, and what I really like about this is that it gives you the option to select if you want the highest score, the latest score, or the average. Typically, most teachers I know like to do averages, and I also have teachers that like to do the latest one. So in this case, I'm just going to leave it on highest. And then you can also give students allowed attempts. So I know sometimes teachers will say, listen, you only have 2 chances on this, and that would be the only amount of times that student could take that quiz. What's nice is that once the student turns in the quiz, it will show them their score and actually prompt them if they want to retake. And that would max them out at however many attempts that you allowed. But in this case, I don't want it with just a practice, so I don't need to add anything. Now, these are kind of important if you're the type of person who doesn't want the students to see correct or incorrect answers. So that's really dependent on you. If you do, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine. But really, these are up to each teacher's preference. Okay. Now, show correct answers at is basically like creating a day in which the students would be able to see the answers at the correct answers. And same concept with this. Another tool that I really like with our special education students is show one question at a time. That means that student can only focus on that one question instead of being able to see 10 or however many questions your quiz has. That really allows them to just hone in on that one question at a time. Now, quiz restrictions is a little bit more like if it's a very structured test and you kind of want it standardized, then you would want to require an access code where the kids can only take the quiz when they're right in front of you, that type of thing. And then another one would be filtering IP addresses in case you wanted them to only take a quiz in a specific place. But in this case, because we're just doing like the basics, I'm not going to be selecting this. And in this case, assign to. Assign to is actually very cool because it allows you to decide who you're assigning this to. So maybe I just wanted to assign it to one specific student because I knew that I needed that student or a group of students to answer those. Then I could simply just start typing in their names if those kids are already populated. If they're not, then just leave it with everyone and that will just assign the quiz to everyone. Now you can assign a due date or not assign a due date. What's nice about assigning a due date is that now if I click on this, then the students on their calendar will be able to see that an assignment is due, which really helps with student accountability because then they're able to really monitor things that they have completed versus things that they have not completed. But again, this is completely up to you and how you want to structure things, but I would definitely go with a due date. Now, if you're like me and you try to work ahead of your class, then what I like to do is available from. What does that mean? That means that I can work on this and maybe I don't need to assign it until a week from now. I created the whole thing and then I simply just click here and I put what date I want my students to be able to see this. They'll be able to see that something's there, but they won't be able to see any of the content that's assigned to this specific thing. So that's what available from will do. Until means that, for example, let's say that I assign a due date of Friday, okay? But I want my students to be able to have it for an extra days. I could do that, and what will happen is, let's say that I have a student that turns in this assignment August 1st. Clearly it's late because I've already assigned it till July 31st. But what will happen is that it's going to still allow them to access this assignment until this date. Meaning that if I'm the student and I completed it on August 1st, it will simply just mark it late. It doesn't automatically denote points off if the student turns it in late. But again, that's what's the beauty in this, is that it's up to the teacher to decide how they're going to either penalize them or not penalize the student depending on the situation. But that is what until is for. So I'm just going to take that off because this is just a practice quiz. So safe, right? But now we have to add questions, right? So I missed that, so let's go back to edit, and then you see that there's a little tab up here. So details was everywhere that we were just going through all the different options, right? Now I missed this, and I'll just tell you what this is. This is like a information system. If you have students that have IEPs or students that have any type of need or accommodations, that would show here. Because I'm in a practice course and I don't have any students assigned to this course, that is why you don't see anything in that box. All right, let's move on to questions. Let's make a question by clicking on new question. Now, if you wanted to create a question group, you could do that, or find questions that are already made. Now, if you do that, there are some questions that you could find, but in this case, I just want to make my own question. Now, what's nice here is that you have options to access different types of questions. You can click multiple choice, true, false, fill in the blank, fill in multiple blanks, text, no question, essay questions. So there's a lot of different things that you can pick from. In this case, I'm gonna click, let's see, what do you know? Let's do multiple choice. And let's add, how comfortable are you with making inferences? Okay. And I can say not comfortable, comfortable, or very comfortable. Okay. And if you look, it's telling me that this one is the correct answer. Now, there is no correct answer here because this is just a practice. This is a practice for me to see how much my students know. So all I'm going to do is click here, multiple answers, and as you see, it's just letting me switch it over. Possible, possible, no problem. And I don't really need this third choice, so I'm just going to delete that. And that's it. That's all you have to do. Now, if you want to go even further and say, let's say that this student selected this answer and you want to tell them or provide some feedback if they chose this answer, I can say, uh-oh, you don't feel comfortable making inferences? Well, let's just say, don't worry. You will learn lots about inferencing. Okay, and that's it. That's all you have to do. Click done. And I'm going to click update question to save it. And as you can see, it's right here. And if you make any mistakes, do not worry. You simply just find the pencil and that will allow you to edit. And if you see, there's a lot of places in Canvas that whenever you hover over them, they bring up pencils. That's just to let you add or edit. So in this case, I'm fine with this question, so save and publish. So here are my directions that we entered in, and I'm going to preview this test. Now, as you see, I didn't assign a due date, I didn't put an available from, and I didn't add an until, and I did that purposefully. So I'm going to click preview, and that's what my students will see when they click on this quiz. So in this case, I'm going to click very comfortable, and of course this is just me, testing this out. And you can see, awesome, did it, and this is what my students will see. Okay, they'll see submission details, and it'll say how much time they spent on this, and the current score that I have and the kept score. Again, this is not a graded quiz, so I'm not really worried about scores, but there's one other thing that you want to pay attention to as a teacher. Moderate this quiz. And what's nice about this is that once you have students in this course, you'll see a list of all of your students, which attempt they're on if you've given multiple attempts, how much time they spent on that attempt, how many attempts they have left, and a score. So this is amazing for just a quick at a glance, how are my kids doing? Okay, all right. So that was the first thing that was in our module, our quizzes. So far we've covered how to create a quiz. Well, now we need to add some information into this page. So let's begin. And I'm going to edit. And now page, think of it just like the way that you would send someone like a PDF. Like there's just information on this page. So I'm going to go to images because maybe I wanted to add a file, but I don't have a file yet. So I'm just gonna search inferencing. Okay. And you could see that a bunch of things come up, but I'm going to do inference like that. Let's see. Anything? No. Let's do learning. Now, of course, you want to search for things that are specific to what you need. And let's just pretend that this was an inferencing thing. Then that would automatically get placed there. Now, if I had a specific file that I wanted to add in there, I could do that as well. So in this case, I don't have anything inside of this play course. So if I did, it would show up here, all of the files that I've added. But let's just add a new file, okay? And I need to choose the file. So in this case, I'm gonna pause really quick till I find that file, and then I'll show you how to upload that. All right, so in this case, I chose this PDF that I had, and I'm just gonna go ahead and click upload. And as you can see, there it is. But I don't really like that my students are just gonna see a link. So watch this really cool trick. I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to go to this little chain link, which is called the link to the URL. And as you can see, I can click this magical button that says auto open. And when I click update, I'm going to click save, and you're going to see that now, instead of my students just seeing a link to the PDF, it will force the PDF to open up right underneath this picture that I added. Now, if you only had a PDF here, then that's all it would show. It would automatically show preview. But if you wanted to add multiple PDFs and you don't want the inline preview, then simply just don't click that box. All right, so now we've gone through. Let's go back to our modules just to do a quick recap on what we've covered so far. So we've covered what do you know, which was our little quiz. All right, I've done that. Oh, but I forgot to publish it. All I got to do is click right here, and my green check mark lets me know that it's published. Now I need to do a discussion. So that little icon that you saw, those two little speech bubbles, that denotes a discussion. So I'm going to go ahead and click edit and pose the question. So the question is going to be, after learning today's lesson, discuss something new you learned about, and we'll keep with the theme about inferencing. Okay. All right, so I'm going to pose the question, and who am I posting it to? I'm posting it to everyone, or I can post it to specific kids if I wanted to. But in this case, I'm just giving it to everyone. Now you can even add an attachment if there was something that you needed your students to refer back to on. But if you don't have anything, you don't have to select. All right, now we're moving on to the options. Allow threaded replies, meaning that students can answer each other's responses and then continue on in that thread. And then this is my favorite ever. Users must post before seeing replies. Now, if this has ever happened to you, there's a lot of students out there who just wait for everybody else to answer. And then they kind of just take that answer, switch around a few words, and then call it their own. Well, in this case, students have to come up with their own answer. And then when they reply, then they can see what everyone else wrote. And I like that because it forces the students to really think about their answers before they start answering. Now, enable podcast feed is a little bit more of an advanced feature, so we're not going to cover that. Graded, meaning that you will be grading this discussion. In this case, I'm not grading it, so I won't be checking that off. But if I graded it, then I could assign it points, but in this case, I'm not. Allow liking, which means that graders can like certain responses. And I don't really use that very often, but if you wanted to, you could select that. Add student to do, it would alert the students on a specific date that they had to complete this assignment. I normally don't do that, but if you want to, that is an available feature. If you wanted to create a group discussion, maybe you wanted certain kids to be grouped up and collaboratively answer this question, then you could select that, and then you could assign them groups. In this case, I want them to answer individually, but this is something that you could do. And then of course there's that available from and available until. So if you're, again, somebody who likes to work ahead of the students and just have those things ready, you could potentially create this and then just allow them to see it at a certain date. So I like everything I did so far, so I'm gonna go ahead and click save and publish. Oh, whoops, we gotta take this off so that it lets me publish. All right, so we've gotten through 3 things in my modules. I'm gonna go back for that 4th one. And of course, you can add as many quizzes or pages or discussions or assignments as you want. It's entirely up to you. All right, so here, let's create an assignment. I would, if I were creating an actual full-blown assignment, there would be a lot more components into here, but something that I do like to include is usually instructions. And another thing that I like to do is also record myself reading the instructions as well. So I tend to use this little blue V, and then I go down to Studio and record myself doing that. But if that's not something that you do, that's fine, but that's just an extra tip. Then of course you provide the instructions. So in this case, I will have my students read the text and think about why the character reacted the way they did. And of course, this is a very generic question, and in a normal situation I would be way more specific and have a text in mind, but in this case I'm just creating a generic assignment just to show you for the demonstration purposes. But regardless, you pose the question here, and then of course you can add in as much content as you want into this assignment. You can add a video, you can add images, you can even record your own media. You can also add images like we did before, files. You can also go to Commons, and Commons is a great place to check for anything that you want. So in this case, let's just say I wanted videos, and I'm going to click Inference. And of course there's none, because of course when we need something it doesn't show up. But this would be kind of the process that you would go to for finding extra materials, okay? So in this case, we just leave it this way. I'm going to assign this 100 points or 10 points or whatever you want. And then you can display the grade as any of these things. That is entirely up to you or what your institution requires you to do. And then of course, submission type. So submission type is going to be important because you're going to want to decide how you want the students to submit this. Maybe there's no submission because you're just posing a question. Online would be that you can allow them to do a text entry. Text entry is simply going to look exactly like this. Now, if you teach younger kids and you want them to do a text entry, just keep in mind that they could potentially click this button, record themselves orally providing the answer, and that you could take as the answer. Or if you wanted them to create maybe like a Microsoft Sway or some kind of presentation and they share the website URL with you, maybe you ask them to create a video, or maybe you just want them to send you a file, and you could even go as far as restricting specific ones. So maybe you just want a PDF, or you just want to document. Any of those things you can put into here. So in this case, I'm going to keep it simple and we're just going to do a text entry. But if you wanted to and you were in a face-to-face situation and you wanted the students to still access this assignment on Canvas, but turn it in on paper, you could. And then of course, like I said before, external tool is going to be a tool like Nearpod, like Newsella, like any of those things where you could integrate it into your course. But in this case, we're going to keep it very, very simple and we're just going to leave it text entry. Now, this is the same concept as what I showed you when it came to quizzes. You can allow certain attempts and you can limit certain attempts. So this is entirely up to you and specific to your class or your style. Requiring peer reviews, I really never use this just because I taught in lower grade levels and it's just not something that I want to do, but if you wanted to, that's an option. Now, group assignment is the same concept as that group discussion. You can group your students and then assign a grade to each student individually. That is entirely up to you. For this case, this is an independent assignment. Again, sync to SIS. That's going to be a fantastic tool if you want to grade this and automatically send it to your student information system where you keep your grades. And again, assign all of those same things. Do, when, available from, and until. And again, if you wanted to just assign it to a specific student, you can. All right, so I'm happy with what I did so far. Assign and publish. We're good to go. So now I'm gonna go home and let's pretend that I'm a student going into this course. Oh, whoops, wait, we forgot one more thing. Back to modules, and look at this. I totally forgot to publish the entire module. So just make sure that if you are publishing as you go, just make sure that the actual module is published. All right, now back to it. Let's go back to student view. And now this is what my students would see. So, oh, my teacher's telling me to check out my modules. So I'm gonna go check my modules. And here we are. So I'm gonna take you through the sequence. What do you know? All right, take the quiz. And it says, how comfortable do I feel? I feel very comfortable. Or, you know what? I don't feel comfortable at all. Let's see. Submit. My teacher says, don't worry. You're going to learn lots about inferencing. Awesome. I'm so glad. All right. Back to modules. I completed that. Now let's begin with RL 1.1. My teacher wants me to read this. Super cool. If I need some help with it, I can click on the immersive reader. And the immersive reader will read it to me, which is amazing. So keep that in mind if you teach little ones, okay? And simply to exit, you just click exit. All right, I read through this. Back to modules. What did I learn? I learned lots. But as you can see, I have to click reply in order to answer this. I learned so much about inferencing. And of course, the question posed was, what's something new? But in this case, I'm just going to answer really quick and post the reply. Now, as you can see, the student answered, and then any other student that posts their reply, they'll be able to reply to this student, okay? All right, back to modules. I'm almost done. And then finally, I get to do my assignment. So I read the text. I'm thinking about why the character reacted the way that they did, and I click the button that says submit assignment. And my teacher said that I need to answer by typing in my answer, or maybe I'm a little one and I need to record or upload, and I simply just click that and record myself. But in this case, I'm just going to, I love this assignment. Obviously, the student probably might not get a good grade on this, but hey, for the sake of showing you, submit assignment, and boom, confetti. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And that's an awesome way that Canvas really engages students in, like, oh, awesome, I succeeded, I turned in my assignment. So now I'm done. I'm the student, I'm done. I'm gonna leave student view. And when we go into this course as a teacher, guess what? I've got things to do. I've got to grade this assignment. So we already went through global navigation, course navigation. I showed you your inbox, calendar, and I went through your course navigation and how to create a home page. We went through modules, and we went through all the different types of assignments, discussions, And now we're going to grade something. So let's go and grade it. Now what's nice about this is that when I'm ready to grade, there's this thing called Speed Grader. And what is amazing about this is that I can quickly and easily grade all of my students' work by simply just clicking on the to do, right? And so this icon takes me to my grade book. This icon will post or hide the grades until I'm ready to post them. So let's say that I want to start grading, but I don't want all the kids to start panicking about what they got. I can potentially hit that. Here I have settings on little keyboard shortcuts that you can use if you want to, or I can access other options where I want my students to be sorted a specific way. And I can see the name of the assignment, the due date, of course I didn't assign one, and how many I've graded so far. In this case I only have one student, so my itty bitty student is the only one listed on this drop down. But if I had multiple students, when I click this I would be able to see everyone. Now this orange button, what it tells me is that I have not graded the student. So let's pretend that the student did an amazing job on this assignment, and boom, 100 points for you. I get now a check mark, and the system also tells me that out of the one student that I have graded that one. I'm good to go, and it tells me when they submitted it and if they submitted any files. If they submitted any files, I'll be able to access it here. But of course I want to give them some comments. Awesome. And you could get as detailed as you want with this. You can add a file attachment to this comment, a video of yourself giving them some feedback, or speech giving them some feedback. So I just click submit, and now my student knows, hey, I got a comment, which would be available on their feedback on their side. And of course, if I had other students to grade, I would simply just click the back or forward buttons to access those. So now I'm done. I'm going to go back to my course by simply clicking that little link. And now I am done. I don't have a to-do because I already graded it. So we've gone through all of these. The final thing that we need to go through is, boom, announcements. Now announcements is going to be where you are going to really be thinking about, what do I need to announce to everyone? So I just click plus. Now I'm going to say, don't forget to turn in your assignments by Friday. And then of course you can put the date or whatever you want. And again, this is the rich content editor, so you can get as fancy or as creative as you want with the bold and the colors, the text. It's really up to you, but in this case we're just doing basic stuff. So I can attach something if I wanted to, and then this is the best one, delay posting. I can delay it until a certain date or time. And so I like to do this, especially like if I'm going to start teaching a new concept, then I will delay this post until that day. Or if I wanted to tell my students something but I didn't want to like spill the beans too early, I could select that. I could also allow them to comment if I wanted them to. And then of course there's those other options like liking and podcast feed. But in this case, I'm not going to delay anything. I want them to know right now that they need to not forget to turn in their assignments by Friday. Save. Boom. Done. So now when I go home, my students can still see my homepage, but they probably got a notification that their teacher just posted an announcement. And if your students are signed up to the mobile app, they would get that notification right to their phones. Or if they don't have an app downloaded, they probably got an email alerting them that they have a notification. So that is our beginner's guide. Was that too much? I hope not. But I'm going to continue making these really cool tips and tricks for you, especially as we're getting ready to get real acclimated with Canvas. So if you have any questions, please let me know. And if you really like this video, I appreciate a thumbs up. And if you want to see more like this, go ahead and click subscribe. Thanks guys. Bye.